Hello, everyone. Today we're doing a little discussion about characters that I feel like have wasted potential in Arrow. Arrow is it's working on its sixth season now, so there's been a lot of episodes. And with that being said, there's also been a lot of characters introduced: bad guys, good guys, supporting characters, guest stars. And with it, and there's been a lot of wasted potential with those characters. Characters that could have been a lot more interesting that have big parts in the comic books, but have very little small bit roles in the TV show. And I just want to, and there's so many that I could spend like probably 2 3 videos focusing on that. But for this video, I just want to focus on a few of my personal, the biggest ones that I feel are really a real big thing for me. That I feel like were closest to me. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. I'm not gonna talk about characters that are big parts of the show that have wasted potential, because I feel like there are a couple. Mainly Mr. Terrific is the big one that comes off right off the bat. He's a character that has a big part in the show right now, but I feel like he is a wasted version of the character. Like, he's not nearly as intricate as the character in the comic books. It doesn't do his character justice. But I don't. This video is not about him. This video is about characters that have barely made any appearance in the show and that could be used more often. So let's just go ahead and get into it. First, and probably the most important one in my opinion, I want to talk about Wildcat, aka Tan Grant, who appeared in a handful of episodes in season 3. He was kind of like a minor character that they kind of introduced, but then they just kind of like threw his character away and just never went back to it. And I feel like they really could have. I feel like he wasn't used right. I feel like his character needed more fleshing out, especially considering how big of a character Wildcat is in the comic books. He's a huge part of, especially street level heroes, the vigilantes. Like, the man has trained Batman, he trained Huntress, he had trained Black Canary and Green Arrow. I mean, it's just, he seemed like a big legacy character that should have had a bigger part in the series. I also feel like they shouldn't have went with the younger, more attractive, theme that they go with a lot of these characters. Like, they try to make them more young, sexy versions of themselves. But they should have just went with the older, seasoned, kind of like, grizzly, like Wildcat we all know from the comic books. It would have made for a much more entertaining character, I feel like, and a more of a mentor character that could have like helped guide some of the characters and gave them wisdom. Also, his costume was pretty poorly translated. I feel like it was this weird mixture between like a biker and some kind of like latex fetish person, but it just didn't seem to like really work well. It didn't feel very Wildcatish. It also didn't help that the few fight scenes he has, he basically loses and gets his ass kicked, by Green Arrow, which is not that bad of a fight because they're doing pretty even. But in his fight against Danny Brickwell, I feel like he shouldn't have lost it the way he did. It just makes his character look weaker than he is, because in the comic books he's a great fighter, and at least if he was older, maybe it would make more sense. But the fact that he's at his prime in this show just makes him seem like he's not that great of a fighter, which in reality he's actually an amazing fighter. So yeah, just a lot of wasted potential with this character. Could have did so much more with it. And even next up we have Count Vertical. Even though Count Vertical has actually made more appearances between the two different versions of the character, has made more appearances than any of the other characters on this list probably. I feel like he's still underused and not properly executed. The character is a huge part of the Arrow mythos. He is one of Arrow's most iconic, biggest villains. Arrow exclusive villains, pretty much. And I feel like the character is just, or Green Arrow, I should say. But I feel like the character in the show is just very underutilized. At first, they try to make him, they try to like modernize him too much for the show. Like, I understand that they didn't want this like crazy dictator of a foreign country, like with a robotic eye or whatever that makes people go crazy, or makes people lose their balance. I knew they didn't want that. That would have been a little weird. So they try to do the best version they could by making him like a scientist guy that creates a drug that makes people lose their balance. It's a very far departure, but it made sense for the show, I guess. But at the same time, I just wanted more out of the character. I really did want more out of the character. His performance was actually not that bad. It was actually pretty good. But I feel like he never got to be as big of a nemesis as he should have been. Like, I feel like he should have, at the very least, I feel like he should have had a whole, like, story arc or like half season dedicated to him being the bad guy. You know, like it would have been cool to like make his character more threatening, have him have a bigger empire, and you know have like at least a half season arc, kind of like how they did with Tobias Church, where they gave him like 5 or 6 episodes and really fleshed his character out. We could have did that with Vertigo, had like a whole storyline with Vertigo being like this big mastermind criminal that the Green Arrow had to overcome, but we didn't do that. And I know the original version of Vertigo is dead in the show. But the second version, this guy here, I forget. I don't think they really said his actual name, but he goes by the Count. And he's actually still a pretty interesting character. I don't think he's quite as good as the original Vertigo, but he's still very decent. And he actually has that kind of like European feel to him, because I'm pretty sure he is a European actor. But he has that foreigner appeal that he could have actually been from the country. Like, and since Arrow has kind of evolved into more of a far-fetched show with all the supernatural stuff. He could actually be from that country. I forget the name of the country, but he could be from the fictional country that Vertigo is from, and he could we could establish him more, like give him a background story, you know, really flesh his character out, and we could use him. They could bring him back, and like I don't think he's actually dead. They could bring him back like in season 6, you know, for a few episodes. And I would really like that, but it probably won't happen. So I'm not gonna hold my breath. Moving on to the next character. In the comic books, Hive is a pretty big deal. They're a huge evil organization that spans, you know, multiple years, fighting multiple characters with multiple plans. But in the show, it felt like they were really kind of like small scale. I know they were supposed to be big and grand, but they really felt like they were small scale. The fact that like we never got to see that many leaders, you know, like Damien Dark seemed like he was able to muscle his way in and just basically take over the whole thing, which I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that Damien Dark was like this super leader of the Hive. I would have liked to see more characters from the Hive, more like leaders, more more plans of theirs. I just felt like they were kind of wasted. Like they weren't used enough. They were just kind of used in the background of the Damien Dark season 4 story arc as this kind of like a vessel for him to kind of shine. But I didn't even like Dark that much. So the Hive just felt useless and hollow. You know, it was just I just felt it was a very wasted potential for a really big evil organization to have in the series. Next we have the Royal Flush Gang, which appeared in one episode of Arrow, titled Legacies in season 1. They also appeared for like 5 seconds in one of the earlier episodes of Flash. I think it might have been season 2. Maybe it was probably in season 1. But they appeared in one of the episodes of Flash for like 5 seconds. He basically just gets rid of them and defeats them. But anyway, I want to start by saying I like the Royal Flush Gang. I think they were done pretty well in the show, especially since they were introduced like really early in Arrow, whenever Arrow was trying to be more grounded and rooted in realism. So they were perfectly well done in that kind of version where they're supposed to be just kind of everyday bank robbers wearing like costumes and they're a family. It all made sense. They weren't super flamboyant like they are in the comic books, but it made sense for the media that it was in, or medium it was in. The only thing I wish that we'd see more of them. Like in the comic books, they're a pretty big thing. You know, they're one of those villains that just kind of fights lots of different heroes, appears in lots of different things. They're always on the move, always looking for new scores. So it'd be interesting to see like them pop up in different shows. Like I know they're in Flash, but they could appear more in Flash. It would be cool to see them in Legend Tomorrow, maybe like a future version where it's like they're kids. It would also be cool to see. It would also be very cool to see them kind of like, you know, see the two sons get out of prison and their mom's remarried and the new stepdad wants to, you know, follow in their family business and kind of makes them become evil again. That could be a cool storyline to pursue. You know, there could just be there's a lot of ways you could kind of like add to these characters, because a family of robbers is actually a really cool concept. But that does it, guys. That's my list of characters that I feel have wasted potential and weren't utilized properly in Arrow. I know there's a lot more of minor characters and stuff like that, so if you guys have one in particular, let me know in the comments. We can discuss it. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks you guys for watching. Really appreciate everything people do for viewing my videos, liking them. I really want to grow this channel bigger and bigger and do more and more like discussion videos and stuff, so thank you guys.